Hey, it's Keith from Outlaw Speed Shop, and this week is another Gaslands build, and this is a Unimog with Danny's Diecast Disasters, who's doing the same car. If you like what you see, make sure you subscribe and ring the bell to get notified of all future videos. Alright, so as you can see, I am working on a Unimog from Hot Wheels. I'm using some parts from Blue Meanie TSI Customs. Mainly the brush guard here, which I thought was a nice addition to this. It's kind of funny because I started building this a couple weeks ago, and I built it for the other challenge I had with Rob from Matchbox Garage and Danny, and I wasn't paying attention to the email because apparently I was supposed to be building a muscle car, and when it was pointed out to me, I kind of switched gears and put this to the side. And then Danny emailed me and said, hey, I see you building a Unimog, so am I. Let's do a challenge or a build off. And I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, already done. So it worked out pretty good. I'm kind of going through bits and pieces here, trying to figure out what to do. As usual, I usually just kind of wing it. I have no rhyme or reason as to what I'm doing or why I'm doing it. I just kind of go with what works. But like with anything, you got to take it apart, and that's kind of what I'm doing here. Just to see what I have to work with. A lot of times I'll add four-wheel drive tires and stuff like that. This kind of has everything, so I was a little bit relieved to not have to worry too much about that kind of stuff. So after stripping it, you know, just a matter of trying to figure out what to do to add to it. So it has a spare tire rack on the back, and I thought it'd be kind of cool to put I don't even know what you call it. I guess it's going to be like a rotating bar that can kind of go down. It'll have chains on it and stuff, and I guess if you're driving, you can like drop it, and you can hang on it if you're shooting at other people, or you want to, I don't know, to be honest with you, I have no idea really what it is. I'm just kind of making this crap up as I go. I'm using some stem wire, which is 16 gauge floral arrangement stem wire. I use it for the M2 wheels. This stuff's awesome to work with. It's just flexible enough you can do stuff with it without it snapping. You know, if you ever worked with paper clips, if you're not careful, you bend it the wrong way, it just snaps in half. So this stuff has got a lot of give to it, but it's very sturdy. So then I ran into the problem I couldn't put the damn thing together because it interfered. So I ended up drilling out a little bit of the base, or the interior, whatever you want to call it, to just give that post, when it comes down on an angle, a little bit more clearance, so that I can fit it in there like that. And then once I'm done that, I'm going to put if you notice the top of that, whatever the heck I'm making there, it's separated. I'm going to just kind of put this piece of styrene tubing in between. It'll just finish off that piece, and it works out good because it's just the right thickness. I also have used this styrene for axle tubes when I use the M2 stem wire axle stuff. You can tell it's early in the morning when I'm doing this because I'm just losing it. I have some chain here that I've used a couple times in the past. I'm going to glue it onto this thing, and then it's a matter of gluing the brush guard on. A lot of this is fit and trying to figure out what's going to work and what's not going to work. Again, I don't always have, actually I never have a plan. When it comes to Gaslands builds, especially anything post-apocalyptic, I'm just winging it as I go. And sometimes I'll put stuff on, and sometimes I take it off because I just don't like the way it looks. But this stuff from Blue Meanie TSI Customs is really, really cool. Everything I've been using has been awesome. It always adds to the finished product. I think it's a nice thing. So because this was more of a Gaslands build, not a post-apocalyptic, which I guess is the same thing, but Gaslands is more for the game. I have some weapons that I got from Mad Cars, and I'm going to add a turret on top, and I think it looks perfect on this. All their stuff is really good too. I can't complain about any of the bits and stuff that I've gotten from people. Just really good quality stuff. It's easy to work with, easy to paint. Real happy. So the interior, I want to do something a little bit different. Or I say the interior, the back, open area. I want to put a motor back there. So the stacks were in the way, as is 90% of everything between the seat and those spare tires there. So I'm going to just pretty much hack it all off, smooth it out, and I'm going to cover it with a piece of styrene, which will give my motor a good base to sit on. There's just so many things in here that I just kind of grind it smooth there. You can see I can pretty much take everything out, just enough to keep it solid. So I'm using some of the thicker styrene. I have different thicknesses. I couldn't tell you. If I had to take a guess, I'd say this is probably 16 gauge. So pretty much mark it off, cut it, trim it, fit it, take it off, trim it, fit it. Most of this stuff you're going to be doing 2 or 3 times. And that's okay. This is the fun part of doing this. There's no rules. There's no, well, that doesn't look like it doesn't matter. You're going to do wherever your imagination goes, you can do it. Especially with styrene. This stuff's not expensive. You can fit and cut and try, and if it doesn't work, and you can throw it away and start over again if you wanted to. It's not a big deal. And that's why I do like, on occasion, is doing these style builds. You know, when you start doing the regular Hot Wheels and everything, you're all stressed out about paint and everything else. It doesn't matter. You just kind of do whatever you want, and I like that because it just helps clear my head, and I can just go down in the basement and have a drink and relax. And that's why I like doing this stuff. So once that's on, I'll have a nice solid place to put my motor, which the motor comes, I'm getting stuff from everywhere on this. The motor comes from Ken I think it's Overby, over on the Gaslands Facebook page. I had ordered stuff a while ago, and it came with like 4 or 5 sticks with motors on it. And I used one on the Chevelle, as a matter of fact, I did last week. And then the side pipes, and I know there's only 3, not 4, comes from Mad Cars, and I think that's it just adds to the toughness when you put the motor on there. So I'm mixing and matching pieces left and right here. But again, that's the great part about doing these, is anything goes, and you can have fun doing it. So I'm going to use those. There's a couple different ones. I decided to use the ones that they look a little bit more industrial. So I think it adds to the look. I mean, not that you can see a ton of it when everything's together, but like with any project, it's the little details that do add up. So I masked off the wheels because I didn't feel like taking those off. Get the interior ready. I prime everything. Once I finish the body, I'm going to use some corrugated, or it's made to look like corrugated steel. Again, it's styrene. I'm going to put that on the passenger side, and then I'm going to use this very, very thin styrene tubing and make some bars to go across the windows in the front. And then I got a piece of screen, which actually is fiberglass. Comes in the fiberglass kit. Like we have a Bricklin at the shop that a friend of mine's working on. So I went into his stash and stole some of the fiberglass, the mesh. It's tough to work with because it's very thick, but it's what I had, so it's what I worked with. I hear the screen door stuff's supposed to be pretty good. So the problem is when you do that and you put stuff on the interior, like mounted on the inside, you have to kind of trim away at the interior piece, because when you go to fit it in, because you've got something there, it kind of usually rubs, so you got to kind of trim it down a little bit. So I'll just kind of keep that in mind if you're ever going to mount something on the inside and keep the original interior. So now it's detail. After I've painted everything, the base in the, I think it was the, oh God, I'm trying to remember. I know the base was Chaos Black, which is pretty much flat black, from Citadel. And I'm using some lead belcher to highlight all the steel. This is just phase 1. When you're doing weathering and you're doing anything with paints, it's all a matter of layering and having the right base coat. So I like to use lead belchers as a darker metallic silver, and it gives it a nice base. They have different silvers, but I just find the lead belcher is a good solid base to work with, and it is one of their base paints, so I guess I'm using it as it's supposed to. I'm grabbing a little bit of I'm trying to remember what that red is, but I'm going to dry brush a little bit on the steel here and there. You just saw the red is for the gas tank that's on the side. And again, it won't stay red for long. It's just a base. It'll have a tint of red by the time I'm done adding rust and weathering and so on and so forth. But that's a Mephiston red, if anybody's interested. And then lead belcher on the interior part, which has the motor. Again, for motors and stuff, I think it's awesome. I really enjoy working with the lead belcher. It goes on really nice as opposed to some of their layer silvers. You have to really put 4 or 5 coats on sometimes. So lead belcher is perfect on that. The fun part about doing these is, again, when it comes to painting, kind of anything goes. I like to work my way up. So I'll start with like a lead belcher or whatever I'm doing. Lead belcher is a good base for metallic things. And then I'll add like some Nuln Oil, some sort of a wash. Then I can add the rust. Then I'll go back over with like a dry brush to highlight some of the metallic areas. All those kind of things really add to it. And at a 1/64th scale, it's really hard to get a lot of detail. So when you start layering little by little, before you know it, at first it looks like, oh man, that looks like crap, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now it's starting to show and look like what it's supposed to. So if you're doing this yourself and it's trial and error, don't stress out too much about it. It's gonna the more you do it, the more it'll start to pop. So don't get discouraged when you're starting to add layers. And I know I'm rambling. I have a tendency to do that. I'm using some Balthasar Gold for the gun turrets. I think that's the only thing I put that on. Again, that's more of it's a base. And then I'll dry brush a little bit on the corrugated steel and then a little bit on the pipes for the engine. And then obviously the chain, because that's got to have a little bit more of a gold look. And if you guys ever have questions about anything, feel free to ask. I'm no expert by any way, shape, or form, and I'm just winging it. I know a lot of people do ask. Sometimes it's through email even. But either way, whether it be in the comments or via email, if you have questions about what I'm using, because I'm going quick and not maybe explaining everything, by all means, please do, and I'll do the best I can. Usually email works best, because I definitely get the email. Sometimes YouTube doesn't always, I don't always get notified of every single comment, which is weird. I don't understand it. But if I'm not answering you, it's not intentional. And once again, if you saw the Chevelle build, I started using this Typhus Corrosion, and it's got a little bit of a grain to it, a little bit of thickness to it. So I'm using that as my base coat for any place that I want to put some heavier rust. And the stuff was amazing. When it dries, it's just got the right, very, very fine texture that you can use. And when you go back over with the dry brush of this stuff, the Riser Rust, and you put the two together, and it's just got an amazing look. And it's a little scary, because if you look at the Riser Rust, it's like, oh my God, that's bright like clown orange. But when you dry brush it on, it looks like rust. It's really cool, especially when you mix it with the Typhus Corrosion. So I'm gonna pretty much go through, do a light rust effect in some places, a heavy rust effect in other places. But these textured paints are really cool. And this Riser Rust isn't a paint so much. It's designed to be dry brushed on. So don't think you're going to just mix it with some water and paint it on. It's definitely designed for this, and it's really, really, I think it looks awesome. I used it on the Chevelle from last week, and it came out really good. And I've got some bigger projects planned. I'm actually planning on building it's kind of an undertaking, but I want to do a war rig. I've got almost all the parts and pieces I need. I got a few more things to get. But that's like a 4-part episode once I start, because it's really, really going to be in depth. But I'm still working on my techniques, which is why I'm doing stuff like this. The more you do anything, the better you get at it. So, and then once I've got a lot of the effects done, like I stated earlier, you take a dry brush with the lead belcher or any kind of a silver, and you just go over it, and what it'll do is it'll kind of show some of the metal like it wore through the rust. because it's a high traffic area, or for whatever reason. And you don't go crazy with this, but it's just enough to add that little bit extra and set you over the top. And there's another, I kind of bounce between Agrath Earthshade and Nuln Oil as far as washes. The Nuln Oil is black, the Agrath Earthshade is more of a browny, dirty looking wash, so I kind of bounce back and forth. A lot of times I'll use the Agrath on motors and stuff like that. Stuff I'm using now, I've used way in the past, it's been a while. It's called Sterling Mud. And again, all these are from Citadel. This stuff is like mud. You put this on, and it's similar to the Typhus Corrosion, but this stuff's got a heavy, it dries and it looks wet, and it looks like fresh mud. So I put that in all the wheel wells, any place down low that would collect a lot of mud. And once that dries, I'll take the Xandri dust, and I'll do all the wheels, any place where dust would go. When I say dust, it's more sand. So over the Sterling Mud, I will put just a little bit of the Xandri dust, so it was almost like the mud is starting to dry. And there's no pattern, you do what looks good. And a lot of times I'll go to Instagram and I'll look at other people's, and I get inspiration from other people. So but that's kind of just about it. Again, I did all this and finished when Danny had messaged me, so if I had known it was for that challenge, I probably would have stepped it up a little bit, but I think it came out really good. You saw what it looked like to start. This is what it looks like now. If you like what you see, stick around, watch my other videos. Make sure you check out Danny's videos. I'll have the link down below, and I'll catch you on the next one.